Welcome to the 10th anniversary of National Forest Week with a theme, Our Forests, Continually Giving. The afforestation areas are situated in the West Swale, Yorath Island Glacial Spillway, a sacred site in Treaty 6 territory and homeland of the Métis. Those who entered into Treaty 6 are the Nehiyawak, Cree, Nakaway, the Saulteaux, and the Yankton and Yankatoni Dakota people. May our relationships with the land, standing peoples, forests, and waters teach us to honor and respect the past and invite us to move forward in harmony. May we all come together as friends to find inspiration and guidance from histories, languages, and cultures which broaden our understanding and community collaboration for the present and future. Good evening. It's truly a great pleasure for the Friends of the Saskatoon Afforestation areas to introduce our speakers tonight who are going to speak to us on the Green Infrastructure Strategy and the Urban Forest Management Plan. With us today are Kate Francis, Park Superintendent, City of Saskatoon, and Jessie Best, Environmental Project Manager, YXE Green Infrastructure Strategy, Sustainability
Thanks so much,
Division.
everyone, and thanks, Julia, for
Please
organizing this event.
Our guest speakers tonight.
And a very happy National Forest Week to everyone as well. So my name is Jessie Best, and I work at the Sustainability Department for the city. And I work primarily as an environmental project manager on the Green Infrastructure Strategy. And go ahead, Kate.
Oh, yeah. I'm Kate Francis. I am a park superintendent. Worked for parks for over 15 years as a technician, and then since 2020, I've been a superintendent. Currently, I'm the superintendent of urban forestry, naturalized, and the urban biological services departments. Really happy to be here.
So before we get started, and thank you, Julia, for your land acknowledgement as well. And I think it's also important for us as city staff to acknowledge the land and kind of from the perspective of the work that we're doing. So we do acknowledge that we're on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. And this land has been inhabited since time immemorial and continues to be by our Indigenous communities. And the work that we're discussing tonight is really fundamentally about our relationship with this cultural landscape. And so acknowledging our shared history and reaffirming our commitment to reconciling with the land and our community is vitally important to the work that we do. So as many of you know, the city has been working on a number of sustainability initiatives that touch on how we can improve overall quality of life for citizens and the community through our green spaces, including the urban forest. And we'll be discussing two of those initiatives tonight, the Green Infrastructure Strategy and the Urban Forest Management Plan. So green infrastructure is the range of living and natural systems within the city, from natural areas like the swales to the South Saskatchewan River, to our parks and other green spaces, to street trees, of course, and green roofs. The Green Infrastructure Strategy proposes a nature-based approach to city planning, where we manage and plan for our green infrastructure in a way that's comparable to the built infrastructure that we usually think of, like buildings, roads, water and sewer systems, etc. This approach recognizes and supports the important services that green infrastructure provides to both the community and the municipality. These services include improved quality of life, mitigating the urban heat island effect, connecting with nature, and stormwater management. Through the strategy, we've developed an inventory of green infrastructure using categories that are shown here, ranging from our significant natural areas on the left-hand side of the diagram to more modified landscapes such as parks and more formal green spaces, to more engineered systems that still use nature-inspired designs such as low-impact development. So those categories are really intended to reflect the range of actions that we can take to manage our green infrastructure, from protecting and conserving existing spaces such as natural areas, to designing our more engineered systems with nature-inspired design. So for example, here, the structural soil cells are often installed ahead of street trees to increase soil volumes and retain water to support tree root development in areas that are prone to compaction and traffic and other urban impacts. The Green Network is a term that we're increasingly using at the city, and it basically refers to Saskatoon's collection of green infrastructure. But taking a network approach to designing our green infrastructure allows us to consider how urban design can provide the community with access to high quality, continuous green space, while also providing a home for the natural systems and wildlife that we share the city with. So this diagram shows the importance of maintaining contiguous habitat in close enough proximity and of sufficient size to support both biodiversity and community well-being. But of course, urban environments present a very unique challenge to maintaining connectivity. And the urban forest is one important way that we can make this happen. For example, by creating stepping stone habitat for urban wildlife such as birds, even in the absence of larger green spaces. And I find that I use this photo a lot in presentations, and one of the reasons I love it so much is it really highlights how important the urban forest is to just the overall continuity of the city's green network, and just how extensive the urban forest really is. So the Green Infrastructure Strategy was presented to Council in February of 2020, and it presented a series of actions that will guide Saskatoon towards the vision for an interconnected green network. And this includes, the typing is kind of small here, so I apologize, but Action 10 to protect and grow the urban forest. And this action is being primarily implemented through the city's urban forest management plan. So I'm now going to turn things over to Kate to describe the plan in detail. And Kate, just let me know when you need the slides changed. Oh, you're muted.
Major amateur hour. Thanks, Jesse. But yeah, thank you. So yeah, the Urban Forestry Management Plan is the plan that kind of zeroes in on our urban forest. And it's significant because the urban forest is such a significant part of the city's green infrastructure. This is one of the really important, especially important from my perspective within the Green Infrastructure Strategy. It's one of the more important initiatives. The UFMP was adopted by Council this year, and its vision is to improve the quality of life through trees. The overarching goals of the plan are to communicate the benefits provided by the urban forest, to identify how the urban forest fits within other COS initiatives, within especially the Green Infrastructure Strategy, and to identify areas where the urban forest would benefit from additional growth or resources. We're also going to provide a plan to address gaps to ensure a more resilient urban forest, and to have a sustainably managed urban forest for future generations is the ultimate goal. Jesse, next slide. And benefits of the urban forest. I don't know if we need to really feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but unlike other infrastructure, trees increase in value over time. In 2019, the value of the public trees in Saskatoon, this is not including shelter belts and the afforestation areas, was estimated at more than $530 million. This value does not include the ecosystem services, such as in this figure here, which add additional direct and indirect economic value. So for example, the trees that filter air pollutants such as carbon monoxide and nitrogen dioxide, ozone, the particulate matter, all the sulfur dioxide that get filtered out. The entire urban forest stores 682,000 tons of CO2, and it sequesters an additional 26,750 tons of CO2 per year. So major services. And this estimate only includes the carbon stored in above ground woody tissue and does not include the roots. So it's a really seriously beneficial asset. And this isn't even talking about the urban heat islands mitigation, managing and filtering rainwater, stabilizing soils, and maintaining soil health, and the increase in citizen well-being that we all get from having a really robust and healthy urban forest. Feel really lucky to live in the city with all of our beautiful trees. Next slide. I really like this chart because it really breaks down our species that are in our managed inventory. So the Urban Forestry Department maintains boulevard, street, and park trees in Saskatoon. So in our managed inventory, there are currently about 110,000 trees, and this does not include the shelter belts and afforestation areas. So out of our inventory trees, you can see this breakdown here, a very large percentage of ash and elm, which is one of the reasons why Dutch elm disease and emerald ash borer are very high on our priority list for management and early detection. Gonna go next slide. So the UFMP has kind of 4 key areas that are kind of broken down, and they all work in concert with each other. The first 2 are planting for trees and growing the urban forest. This chart shows canopy growth and areas that have had a reduction in canopy since 2005. So our urban tree canopy has increased by more than 25% since 2005. One of the major goals of the forestry management plan is to promote this upward trend. So within the operations of the Urban Forestry Department, planting and growing go hand in hand. Our teams are constantly surveying for appropriate planting sites in order to determine the most efficient and beneficial areas for both new plantings and reforestation and canopy growth. So to this end, I just wanted to kind of introduce, we have several planting programs that are in place, and these are designed to increase the canopy in areas where there is low canopy cover, and to maintain and grow the canopy in areas where there's higher canopy cover, but maybe it's been reduced, trees die. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining and replacing as things go. So one of those programs is the Industrial Tree Planting Program, which is a capitally funded program that looks for suitable planting sites in the industrial areas. And these are areas that typically have very low canopy cover and are quite difficult to plant in. So we are always on the lookout for ideal sites there. The other is the Community Tree Planting Program, which allows homeowners in newly developed neighborhoods to request a tree for city-owned portion of their front or side yards. And those will go onto our inventory, but homeowners that want that can request the tree. And the Urban Reforestation Tree Planting Program is where we go through well-established neighborhoods and proactively select sites to replace and plant new trees. So our forestry technicians go out and choose appropriate planting sites and tree species to allow for successful establishment and contribute to a sustainable urban forest. So we will try to kind of increase the biodiversity in some of those more monocultured streets as we go. And then we also do park tree planting. All of our parks operations are constantly kind of working on the parks tree planting to make sure our parks are full and beautiful. Okay, next slide. Oh, sorry. The third area that the UFMP focuses on is tree maintenance, which is really key, important to maintaining the health of our urban forest. So Saskatoon's inventory trees receive preventative maintenance and inspections and are maintained, inspected, and pruned on a 7-year cycle for street and boulevard trees, and on a 13-year cycle for park trees. This ensures that the trees are routinely inspected and maintained for health, structure, and safety. And much of this work is done by our in-house team of certified arborists. And we also hire certified arborists as contractors for some of our street neighborhoods. In addition, we also have tree inspectors that go on site to inspect and address any concerns when they arise, citizen concerns, or they're always out looking and making sure that everything is safe and healthy. And tree protection is another one of the key points outlined in the Urban Forestry Management Plan. It's one of the things that is really in our focus right now. Our forestry technicians work with developers and homeowners and other city departments. We work with planning and development to ensure the right tree is planted in the right place. And one of the key things that we're working on is getting stronger tree protection policies in place, as well as working with planning to ensure that we have the right places for the right trees going forward in new developments, and especially with the infill developments as well that we're seeing a lot of a few tree conflicts. So trying to mitigate that. So those are the key points of the urban forestry management plan. Thanks, Jesse.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. So in addition to those initiatives through the urban forest management plan, we have several other initiatives that relate, albeit less directly, to protecting or managing the urban forest. So for the last several months, our team in the sustainability department has been working to develop an implementation plan for the Green Infrastructure Strategy that compiles those actions that I mentioned earlier into specific initiatives that city staff can use to guide our work over the next 10 years as it relates to green infrastructure. So we have submitted some of those initiatives to Council for consideration at the upcoming budget deliberations in November. And so if we do receive funding approval, we'll be able to launch some of these programs that I'll be talking about in 2022. So keep in mind, the following programs that I'm going to be discussing are still, we're still waiting for funding approval. We're still underway with some of our public engagement, so they're not fully baked yet, so to speak. But we do have business cases in before Council, and so we're hoping that we'll be able to proceed with some of these programs in the coming years. So first program that I'll touch on is the Natural Areas Program, which proposes protecting, managing, and restoring natural areas in the green network. Natural areas make up about 14% of the city's footprint, and include significant sites like the Northeastern Small Swales, naturalized parks, and the Richard St. Barbe Bakery Afforestation area. But many of these sites are undesignated or unmanaged. That is to say, they don't have a specific level of service assigned to them, or they're underfunded. And many of them also potentially have degradation issues such as contaminants or invasive species. At the same time, natural areas provide considerable value to the city, such as carbon sequestration, making connections between the community and nature, providing stormwater management, and storing carbon. Oh, I might have said that one already. But managing and restoring our natural areas will ensure that these spaces continue to provide these important services to the community. And of course, trees and natural areas often go hand in hand. While trees were not a significant portion of the city's original landscape, Saskatoon does fall within the Aspen Parkland ecoregion, where pockets of trees and shrubs in more moist areas, such as near wetlands and in the river valley, are common. So managing natural areas does include a certain amount of tree management as well. So through this work, we're keeping a close eye on potential funding opportunities, in addition to our council funding requests, such as the federal 2 Billion Trees Initiative, which may provide an opportunity for the city to increase capacity in our native tree seedling production at some point in the future. And so we're looking forward to those sorts of opportunities as well, and we'll provide updates if and when those things do occur. Other initiatives within the Natural Areas Program include developing management plans for natural areas. We're also looking at a traditional land use and knowledge assessment of the green network starting in 2022 to better understand traditional and Indigenous land uses of this land and how those can be supported in our natural areas management. And we're also looking at policy improvements related to natural areas. So like I said, we have business cases submitted to council that propose launching these initiatives in 2022. Although we've already started to do some of the background work to develop these. Getting more into urban areas, the Great Green program proposes increasing green infrastructure, the more engineered forms of green infrastructure in built-up areas of the city. This could include support for planting more street trees in public spaces, adding green roofs or bird-friendly windows to a building, or incorporating low-impact development into site design for new spaces. These types of features are shown to improve public health outcomes, reduce the urban heat island effect, and provide other services such as on-site stormwater management. However, most current city policies and standards don't require green infrastructure for new developments, and there are few incentives for the community and commercial sectors to add green infrastructure to private properties. So when it is installed, it's often in an ad hoc manner, which creates a risk that we're missing opportunities where they're potentially available. This then in turn leaves an opportunity to embed green infrastructure into new projects, such as infrastructure retrofits, policies, incentives, and education. So the initiatives within this program will include embedding green infrastructure into city-facing projects, such as policy, as well as supporting the commercial sector to implement more green infrastructure on private properties. It will also continue to support existing initiatives at the city, such as the Urban Forest Management Plan, as well as other items such as the Active Transportation Plan as well. So the Connected Green Network program will add or improve green infrastructure that connects the gaps between those built-up urban areas and the natural areas. While the city already has many beautiful green spaces, there's not always functional ecological connections between those spaces, or we might have green spaces that have been degraded, or there might be a low distribution of green infrastructure in a particular area, which in turn has impacts on our equity and wildlife considerations as well. Another challenge is that potential connections between sites might be owned by multiple landowners, and so jurisdiction is an issue, which can limit opportunities for connectivity. So initiatives within this program will include improving the level of service at key sites, such as through park upgrades, as well as working with rights holders, landowners, and the community to identify and add new sites to the green network, as well as naturalizing or adding native species to a green space, remediating contaminated or degraded sites, and other restoration type work. These initiatives are proposed to start in 2024, but will build directly from some of our earlier work and the best practices and learnings from both the natural areas and the Greater Green programs. Existing work that supports green network restoration, such as park naturalization, would also proceed earlier. The Growing Community program is less focused on the infrastructure itself and the policy, but more on the building community side of things. So this program proposes to create more opportunities for the community to get involved in the green network or incorporate more green infrastructure at home through education, incentives, and stewardship opportunities. We've heard in many past engagement activities that the community is very interested in stewarding public green spaces. And we're so appreciative of the work that passionate volunteer groups are doing to protect and raise awareness about the urban forest. Friends of the Afforestation areas, of course, and SOS trees, and probably many others that I haven't mentioned. But the city currently doesn't have a consistent messaging about the green network. And we don't have a common process to encourage community stewardship activities as it relates to green infrastructure. Many of our existing and very well established stewardship programs focus on recreational uses of green space, but we have fewer supports for citizen science and community stewardship type activities. So this means that community groups and citizens are often approaching us, wanting to get involved in the green network, but there might be a long wait time for approval, or there isn't a kind of a clear message about what is and isn't allowed. So the city has an opportunity here to actively support and encourage the community's enthusiasm through education, incentives, and an improved stewardship process. These initiatives will include sort of an analysis of the current stewardship groups that are already out there, the current activities that are already happening, and doing a gap analysis of what we can be doing better to support these types of projects. Finally, the Sustainable Food Program will work towards a sustainable and just local food system in Saskatoon through food policy, community support, and demonstration projects. Many other cities are considering how they can work towards sustainable local food systems, as this is shown to improve public health outcomes and reduce the carbon footprint of the food that we eat. And of course, we've heard in past engagement that residents would like the city to work towards sustainable food policies. There have been previous reports like the 2014 Regional Food System Assessment and Action Plan that identified recommendations for the city, but many of those have not yet been funded or implemented. And many local community organizations are also working towards a sustainable food system, but have provided feedback that the city could improve its support to these programs. So this program is an opportunity to continue to support the community to implement the food systems work. And this program is less likely, I would say, than the others to deal directly with urban forestry related actions. But I did want to highlight one potential initiative in particular. We do receive lots of feedback from the community that there's interest in planting more fruit trees and food forests on public land. And this is something that we'll be looking into through this program. The photo shown here is a food forest that was planted at the Varsity View Community Garden in Saskatoon and is cared for by community garden members. And while this garden is on school division land, it's not on city land, it's a model that we could potentially look into as a possibility for wider adoption in the city. Although a great deal of our park space, I should mention, is currently, I would say we have an ongoing over allocation issue in our parks where there's so much desire to use park space for many different reasons, and it can be difficult to find urban agriculture opportunities, as our community garden participants are probably well aware of. So one initiative that we would be looking at through this is what types of land spaces are available for these sorts of projects as well. So much like the Growing Community Program, the Sustainable Food Initiatives will have a focus on identifying and supporting existing community projects. Early food security projects that we're looking into include demonstration pilots. We'd like to consider the feasibility of food forests and those sorts of things, as well as traditional food systems, as well as a mapping component of where some of these publicly available food systems are located. The future policy work, which we've kind of entitled the Sustainable Food Action Plan, is proposed to start in 2024 and would incorporate best practices from the food projects work and begin to implement some of those food-related policies and actions. So that's basically it for our presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions as best we can, or if there's any questions that you have that we can't answer, we can follow up with you and go back and find out from our colleagues at the city if there's something that you're wondering about. I've left the contact information for green infrastructure related work up here, but if you'd like to get in touch with anybody, Kate or anyone from Urban Forestry about the UFMP, you can contact the email here as well, and I can get you in touch with her. We have ongoing engagement opportunities for the Green Infrastructure Strategy, so if you're interested in signing up for project updates and want to provide feedback on future engagement, you can follow the link to the website there. And I can send all of this information up to Julia so that you have the direct links as well. But yeah, if you have any questions, we're happy to take those now, but you're also welcome to email me at the email provided here anytime. And I'm happy to answer questions at any point. So yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, wrap up by say thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. And yeah, I hope that the rest of the events are wonderful, and I'm looking forward to hopefully checking some of them out as well.
Thank you, Jessie, and thank you, Kate, also. Your presentation was very exciting and wonderful. It was much appreciated that you could make the time tonight. If
awesome.
anybody,
Thank you.
cool. If anybody has a question to bring forward, you can either use the chat or you can unmute yourself and bring forward a question if you have one.
Julia, I'm wondering if they're not planting elm and ash now, what kind of trees are they planting?
Oh, well, we've actually put a hold on ash right now. We are still planting elm. We do have a presence of DED in the city for 2 years in a row now, so we are in an Dutch elm disease response. But we are confident in our ability to manage it right now. We've taken a pretty hard stance on it and are doing everything we can. Yeah, we're trying to focus more on trees like maple, linden, and there's always new things popping up at the garden centers. And our tree nursery is constantly kind of trialing new things to see what will survive and what won't. So we are really trying to diversify. There are quite a few new species and new hybrids that on the market that are actually quite nice. So. Elms are perfect for straight trees and ash, but there are some alternatives.
That's good. Diversification is excellent.
Yeah, get rid of that monoculture. It's beautiful. Spadina is so beautiful, but
yeah.
That's for sure. Thank you, Kate. That was a good answer. Are you going to be diversifying the Avenue of Trees in Woodlawn Cemetery too? I know it's a National Historic Site, but because it's all planted to elm, it would be kind of nice to have a backup just in case Dutch elm disease got in there, just to continue the Avenue of Trees there.
Yeah, I think that Woodlawn, I can't speak to it directly. It's kind of its own little island, but I do believe that they have been starting to put in different species and focusing on ornamentals as well and that kind of a thing. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I see a question from Shannon in the chat wondering if we have ideas on how the community could help support your work. Yeah, that's a really good question, Shannon. And I think in some respects, one of the things that we are trying to ask more in our program development is how can we as the city better support the work that the community is already doing. But yeah, if there is interest in among the community to support the work, I mean, we'd really love to hear from anyone in our upcoming public engagement events. We'd love to hear your feedback and ideas for whether it's a community stewardship initiative or an education initiative on just what your ideas are for things that we should be considering. And Kate, I don't know, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, we're primarily an operational division, so we're kind of just really trying to keep our maintenance on top of all of that and all of our keeping in line with the goals of the UFMP and planting and all that. But one major thing that does help is advocacy from groups such as yourselves, and just really helping us out with that educational component for citizens, and elevating the urban forest's importance to where it should be. It is really valuable.
It is indeed. I hope that answered your question, Shannon. So, thank you very much, Kate and Jesse. You said that the November budget was coming around soon again. It's hard to believe that the 2-year budget is coming up already again. Is there anything that the community can do to support urban forestry and YXE Green Strategy during these committee type meetings and things like that to help you guys get a share of the dollars?
Well, I should say that whether you walk away from the presentation and you're really on board with everything that we've presented, or you think that it's all a terrible idea, either way, you should definitely consider making your voice heard through our democratic processes, including with the budget deliberations. And so, yeah, let me just see here. I believe budget deliberations are the last week of November and the first week of December. And so if you watch the council events calendar, you'll be able to see when those agendas pop up with the kind of the details of what specifically is being considered. Speaking as somebody who's still learning all of the ins and outs of the city budgeting process, it can be a little bit confusing to sift through all of the information that's on the table. So if anyone needs kind of clarification of where they can read more about our budget items that are being tabled, you can definitely email us and we can send you those specific links.
Okay, Jessie?
I don't really have anything to add to that. It's about the same answer.
Right. So with the 2 million tree project, has the City of Saskatoon been received as one of the cities taking part in that, or is it still an application process going on there?
Yeah, the application process was a little bit confusing. We submitted sort of an early proposal through the kind of the original RFI, request for information screening, which I believe the federal government was just kind of using as a way to gauge what municipalities might be interested in submitting for sort of a full funding proposal. And we're still kind of on standby waiting to hear back for when the full request for proposals will be announced. I imagine the federal election has probably delayed some of those kind of decisions on when certain funding announcements will be made. So it's definitely something that we're keeping an eye on, and we've been talking with sort of internally with sustainability in parks, as well as community organizations as well. And so I think there's some good potential there.
Very good, thank you. And I would imagine that Parks and Urban Forestry are working with the Meewasin, because I think the latest grant announced by the Government of Canada was a Meewasin grant that was applied for, that I heard about. But it probably is affecting city Parks and Urban Forestry as well, to work in conjunction.
Yeah, so you're probably thinking of the announcement for feasibility study for an urban national park, and yeah, and you're absolutely right. That was geared towards Meewasin specifically. From what I understand, that funding, again, with the federal election, I imagine there's been a delay on releasing any of the details, but it sounds like the first stage will be a feasibility study of what an urban national park would actually look like in Saskatoon, and I'm sure there'll be Meewasin will be working with the city to kind of complete that feasibility study.
Sounds very exciting for a time coming up.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So I'll put a call out to the people in the audience. Does anybody else have another question to bring forward in the chat or by unmuting your speakers, your microphones? I guess I have another question. With the Dutch elm disease, does the city have a program? I know a little while ago there was sort of like a postcard type deal, an informational sheet that was given out at the compost about elm in case someone came to the compost with elm. It sort of helped them to identify elm and told them the proper way of disposal. Are you going to have any other types of educational programs with a little handout thing for anybody to learn about Dutch elm disease, especially seeing as how it was found? I think it's mainly on the Montgomery Place and area southwest edge of town. So and so that would involve the 11th Street compost and area. So is there an educational program in the works or not?
Yeah, we've actually increased our communications quite a bit because we had our second positive case in Leif Erikson this summer. So those educational pamphlets have gone out. We're focusing our response plan on those neighborhoods in a 2-kilometer radius around where the positive tree was. And so those pamphlets have gone out there. And then there is going to be plans for increased communications, billboards, that kind of a thing. We're going to update our highway signs right away about not transporting and storing elm wood. And we've been in talks with the province about, what we can do with them on that end. As well, we've just launched, if people are suspicious that they don't know if they have an elm tree in their yard or they're worried about their elm tree, there is a DED, and I wish I had this queued up, but there is a DED, DED info at saskatoon.ca is where you can email to ask and send in photos, and our urban biological services team will take a look and let you know whether or not you have an elm tree, or if it's a concern, or if they're elm logs, where we are finding that quite a few folks don't know that they have elm logs in their yard. And we've hauled a lot. We've hauled tons and tons and tons of wood out of those neighborhoods. So we do recognize that there's a huge need for that increased communication and education. But yeah, definitely more in the works. And yeah, the website has been updated with more educational information. So.
Thank you. I've been watching kind of the spread of Dutch elm disease, and I think Saskatchewan and the City of Saskatoon have done an admirable job, seeing as how it's an fungal-borne infection carried by the beetles, and it's very hard to do stuff about beetles and fungal infections, but considering it's not moving very fast and you're very proactive, I'm very happy with the response. So thank you.
Awesome. I'm very happy with it too. Our team has done such a great job this year. They were testing and just monitoring. Yeah, they did awesome.
Very nice.
All right, question from Kathy. I'll be following up on I'll be following the National Urban Park. Yeah, it's exciting stuff. And I want to volunteer. How can I help? I'm assuming that might be directed at you, Kate?
Well, with the Urban National Park, that is a primarily a Meewasin project, and they are always looking for volunteers. So they usually on their website will put out a call for volunteers, but I think there's an email address if you go to their website, if you would like to start getting involved with their volunteer opportunities. Yeah, it's a really exciting project. I'm excited to kind of see what they come up with, because I can't really envision it right now.
Yeah, I know it sounds like it could be a really cool
Sounds
thing,
amazing.
but I don't have a clear idea of what it actually means, which I guess is why they're doing a feasibility study first. But yeah, as far as other volunteering opportunities, we don't have too many just yet, because we're still in the process of launching our programs for the Green Infrastructure Strategy anyway. But if you're interested in like community stewardship type opportunities, I think there's probably several volunteer groups that would be very happy to have you from some of the groups here tonight, and Meewasin, like Kate mentioned as well. But if there's something specific that you're looking for, definitely feel free to send me an email, and I can try and connect you with folks who might be looking for volunteers.
Thank you, Jessie. And I'll just mention that our group is also always looking for volunteers. We're the Friends of the Saskatoon Afforestation area, so that would be excellent places also, besides the ones by Jessie and Kate.
Well, and it just seems like I love when you send photos of the work at the afforestation areas, Julia, because it just seems like it's such rewarding work, like all of the work that you guys do on the, picking garbage and everything that you do. It's so appreciated.
It has made a safer green space that many people are enjoying.
Yeah.
And thank you for being with us tonight. It was truly enlightening to hear about the many ways the City of Saskatoon is working on urban forestry and the greenscape of the city. On behalf of the Friends of the Saskatoon Afforestation Areas and everyone here tonight, we thank you for being with us. Thank you kindly to Jessie Best and Kate Francis for their time and for providing clarity on the direction of YXE Green Infrastructure Strategy and urban forestry. Thank you also to everyone who tuned in. Please join us in our next 3 virtual sessions for National Forest Week. Still to come are When and Where Did You See What? Parks, PARX, Canada's first national nature prescription program, and Our Forests, an introduction to biophilia, along with an in-person Sundays at 2 Nature Connect program at Richard St. Barbaker, Afforestation area. On November 6th, we will be releasing an international heritage film to be aired at 1 p.m. virtually on the legacy of a global conservation humanitarian. The afforestation areas are delightful man-made forests in the prairies. Come enjoy the changing autumnal colors and indeed also revel in picturesque hoarfrost and rime scenes over the winter months. Come connect with nature in a prairie forest during National Forest Week or indeed all year round. The roses would love to meet you. Thank you for being with us on the 10th anniversary of National Forest Week with a theme celebrating our forests, continuously giving. And thank you kindly to our guest speakers from the City of Saskatoon. Good night.